Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I will be talking about my top 5 favorite YA book series. The YA genre is not necessarily the genre that I am the most well versed in. I'm not the most well read in that genre. However, I've read a decent amount, and I've now read about 7 exclusive YA series that I've enjoyed most of them. And then I've read several book series that are kind of in between. They're categorized as one or the other depending on where they're published. For example, the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. Some places categorize it as YA, some places categorize it as adult. It just depends. Well, I'm going to talk specifically about my favorite YA, the ones that are like strictly these are YA series. So Mistborn doesn't make the list because it's also kind of considered adult fiction. So this is just my list, not saying your list is right or wrong. Let me know your list down in the comments section down below. I know I've not read that many. So 3 of mine are like the most obvious choices that everybody knows, and then 2 of my choices I think are a little bit more obscure. So I'd be interested to see what you have on your list. So let's kick mine off with my number 5, which is the books Hit and Strike from Delilah Dawson. This is a book series. I don't think it's not sold particularly well, so it's just 2 books. But this series is basically where this bank takes over the country, and this bank leverages people's debts to make people work for the bank. And some of that work ends up being you have to go and kill people. And so you have, in this book, a young girl is hired by the bank in the first book to go kill 10 people who have not paid back their debts, to collect the debts or kill them, and then she ends up befriending one of the people she's supposed to go kill and ends up kind of forming a little bit of a romantic attachment to him. And then in the second book in the series, the 2 of them go on the run. And are trying to escape the bank, which is now chasing them. And it is a really exciting, fast-paced, interesting duology of books. It could have been a trilogy. The author just hasn't been able to write a 3rd book because the publisher has been uninterested in it. And I think she just doesn't feel like it would sell well. But I love these books, and I really think that more people need to read them. And hopefully, if more people do read them, there will be a 3rd book one day. But I loved these books, and so that's my number 5. My number 4 is a series everyone's going to know, The Hunger Games. You have the first book, The Hunger Games. The second book, Catching Fire. Really liked this one. You have Mockingjay, and then you have I'm including the prequel in this because I loved the prequel. I thought the prequel was amazing. One of my favorites. The prequel and Catching Fire are like my 2 favorite books from the Hunger Games series. I love these 2 books, but the series as a whole I think is very well done, and the movie adaptation I thought was quite good as well. And so I don't need to talk more about that. Everyone knows the Hunger Games. My number 3 is my other obscure list, but I read this year, and I thought that this was a delightful and compelling and amazingly done YA trilogy, and that is the Partials series by Dan Wells. You have Partials, Fragments, and Ruins. And this trilogy is a YA series focused on the idea that there is an AI type formed group that we create to help protect us from aliens, for lack of a better word. And then this AI group turns on us and ends up creating a big disease that makes it so that humanity can't have any more children. And so the whole point of the books is trying to find a way to stop the disease so humanity can have children, and is also about finding out what is it to be humanity, what is it to be AI. And they don't use the words AI, but that's basically what it's meaning. And this trilogy is just superb. There is a twist in the first book that had my jaw on the floor. I was amazed by that book. It's the whole trilogy. The trilogy as a whole is really well done, but man, the first book in particular, it just hooks you, and it brings in science in a way that YA doesn't normally do, because you're talking to teenagers or girls and boys who aren't particularly into that stuff. But boy, the science behind this series is just amazing, and the character work I think is really good. Dan Wells is becoming a favorite author of mine, and so that's why that trilogy is on my list. Going to my number 2 is actually a book series from my favorite author, Brandon Sanderson, and that is his Reckoners trilogy. You have the first book, Steelheart, You have the second book, Firefight, and the third book, Calamity. This is kind of all the superheroes are bad, so we have to stop them. They're actually all supervillains, but we don't have any natural powers, and so it's about our heroes fighting our villains. And I thought it was a delightful and amazing trilogy. It gets specifically, this is a trilogy that really, I think, connects well with boys, with young boy readers. And I wish I'd had this trilogy. This trilogy came out when I was a preteen and a teenager, but I wish I had read it back then, because it would have gotten me into reading at a much younger age. And this trilogy, it's just, the main character is so relatable, and his humor is just so fun and whimsical, and yet he's in such a dark place. And there's some great, again, twists and turns in these books that other book series aren't able to do. That's just delightful. So that's why this is my number 2. My number 1, I would be surprised if anyone is surprised by this. My number 1 is, of course, Harry Potter. By J.K. Rowling. You've got The Sorcerer's Stone, The Chamber of Secrets, A Prisoner of Azkaban, The Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix. You've got The Half-Blood Prince, and The Deathly Hallows. And this is just, it just doesn't get better than this when it comes to YA for me. And this was the first YA series I read. I read it in the months of November and December of 2016. And I loved it. I thought this was an amazing series of books. And the way that this handles school, the way it handles character, the way it handles love interests in YA, the way this book series handles heartbreak and people making a stand against the machine, all that stuff is done beautifully in the Harry Potter series. And the writing style is just so beautiful, and just in every way these books work for me. And so I think that this is just an amazing series, and it's going to be hard to top it. And it was my first YA series, and so it maybe has a little bit of nostalgia, but I've gone back and reread it, and it was totally worth it. So I loved this series. So that's my top 5 YA book series that I've read and loved. And so if you've read YA, let me know what your rankings are down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.